Good evening and welcome to a very special edition of Head to Head at the Defiant. And joining me today is a man who really shouldn't need an introduction. It's Andrew Yang. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us and welcome to the show. It's incredible that we can have this kind of conversation and chat about things that really genuinely matter. So why don't we just jump straight into it? You are bringing together Lobby 3, but what is Lobby 3 for anyone who doesn't know?
Lobby 3 is an initiative to take the voices of Web3 to Washington, D.C., where we can hopefully expand people's understanding of what these tools can do to improve the public interest, improve people's lives. There are a lot of folks in D.C. that I think are a little bit in the dark or confused about the myriad range of uses for the blockchain and Web3 technologies. And so we're making the case as quickly as possible to avoid some ill-conceived or overly freighted rules from coming out in the not so distant future.
I feel like you're being diplomatic there to a degree. Do you mean that they're skewing slightly old? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I am the math guy. The average U.S. senator is 63. Average member of Congress is 58. And those are the averages. So leaders tend to be a bit older. So if you ask them about NFTs or the blockchain, you're likely to get a bit of mystified expression. And that's not a knock. That's just, like a lack of understanding. So hopefully we can help change that.
Well, I think a mystified expression is one thing. A willingness to engage in a conversation is another thing. But there also seems to be some overwhelming hostility. We saw Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, Brad Sherman come out scornfully against DeFi and against crypto. And I wonder why they are so angry. Why do they feel like they have to shout so loudly against something which, from our point of view, seems to offer an enormous number of benefits to the people they're supposed to represent?
Yes, a lot of the same political figures, if you ask them, will say that they're for access, they're for not having a megacorp control every aspect of your life. They're for financial inclusion, they're for competition, they're for transparency. So that there are some misconceptions. I will say the figures you just named, at least one of them I know is very tight with existing financial institutions that are a little bit old school. That's Brad Sherman specifically. So some of them I would dare say might have traditional political motivations. Some might actually feel that way about the space, and hopefully we can help alleviate some of their concerns and also get to a lot of the folks who have not yet made up their minds, which does comprise the majority of legislators from the conversations we've had.
Yeah, there seems to be this cognitive dissonance. There's this feeling that money needs to change in some way. And there's also this feeling that the US is lagging behind. I remember when we first spoke, you were somewhat pessimistic about the opportunity or the closing window for meaningful regulation in this space. Do you feel like that window is still open, or are macro events starting to accelerate a process which you'd already spotted?
The window's open, but it's not going to be open for long, truly. So we are in touch with various folks in DC, and I'm going to suggest that a lot of them have not made up their minds. I would even categorize some of them as open-minded. So there's still a lot of value to be had, a lot of work that can be done to push things in a positive direction. But we don't have that much time. And there are a number of people whose attitudes are hardening, in part because of recent events.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's this need for lobbying, but I think you'd be the first to admit lobbying is a very subtle and somewhat dark art. So I wonder how you can kind of advocate for the process of lobbying, and particularly your skills in doing it, for an industry like ours that seems to kind of want to run in the opposite direction for anything political or anything related to regulation.
Well, first, let me say, if you don't like politics or this talk of government, I totally get it. I've been doing some work in DC for the last couple of years, and it was born out of an Onion article I read about 11 years ago. that said the American people hire lobbyists to fight for their interests in DC. And there's a picture of a guy in a suit being like, now they'll take us seriously. I thought this was hysterically funny. But then I thought, wow, that might actually work, because right now, who hires lobbyists? It tends to be really big companies with enormous vested interests and budgets. And so if you have a body of ordinary people who are benefiting from, let's say in this case, a set of technologies, do they have the same kind of presence or voice on Capitol Hill? And if they don't, then how would you change that? Now, you talk about the art of lobbying. There is a range of activities that one can pursue, most of which are completely benign, where you're just sharing information, shedding light on examples that people might not be aware of. Because right now, if you ask a regulator what the primary use cases are of cryptocurrencies, they're probably going to say something like money laundering, drug deals, and human trafficking. And so if then you can then shed a spotlight on the medical centers in Texas that are accessing patient data securely using the blockchain in a way that makes the data tamper-proof. That's not what they're thinking of, but that's something that is happening. And so you can say, look, that there are so many different applications that don't fall into the current press narrative.
Well, it's not such a sexy headline, is it? Data records are now more secure thanks to blockchain. Or blockchain is used for child pedophile rings. That's going to get people reading the news. So how do you take the message and make it punch harder for the cause?
Well, you have to know that in DC, the messenger matters as much as the message. So if you're a sitting member of Congress or a regulator, there are certain people who have your ear. And so if they come to you and say, for example, look, I have people in my district that are your constituents that really value these technologies for the access to financial resources that they wouldn't have had otherwise, for empowering creators, that there are ways that you can get the message to someone that counters what might be going on in the press on an individual level, which still is the most effective. So I'm friends with a bunch of legislators, and they do have this kind of apparatus around them. But there are also people that they listen to, whether they're people that they represent or help them get elected, or someone whose perspective on tech that they appreciate and value. I think that we should be trying to shed light even for the press, for different types of utilities. But also we can do things the old fashioned way, which is go straight to the person with the right messenger.
So it's a business of relationships, which I think everyone expects politics to be. Everything happens back channeling, this kind of thing. Are there people that you can see taking up the fight and becoming the next Andrew Yang in this process? Because you can't do it on your own. You need other advocates. But are you seeing people willing to step up and be that for this space?
So they're the people in the space themselves. Tons of energy, tons of ingenuity, not a whole lot of familiarity with DC. And I'm going to suggest they don't necessarily want to become familiar. So I certainly don't think that this is an Andrew Yang thing. I mean, it's one reason why Lobby 3 is structured as a DAO at lobby3.io, so that the community can help make the case positively in a ground up fashion. And I think, ideally speaking, you have a chorus of people, most of whom are not household names. You know what I mean? Like if there's someone who's the head of a nonprofit in Ohio, who sees that the people that they serve are benefiting from Web3, then they can go to that member of Congress, and that's like a very, very powerful voice. You don't need, frankly, like a lot of famous people making the case. Like you need people that are close to the ground in the situation.
One of the things that struck me about Humanity Forward, and particularly about your views on cryptocurrencies, is that you're very keen for it to be non-partisan, for it to be bipartisan, for it to basically affect everyone positively, no matter where they sit on the political spectrum. Is there a danger that the issue of crypto and everything it encapsulates is going to become rapidly partisan under the current structures?
Oh yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but in America, just about everything becomes partisan on one side or another, because we're a very polarized country. It's one of the reasons why I'm passionate and concerned that we have to act fast, because if you just take the path of least resistance, I can easily see a world where one side comes out against crypto and then the other side becomes for crypto, and bad things result for the space. So what you have to do is hustle to the folks who are on one side that you might think is reflexively anti-crypto, and then show them it's like, look, this is alleviating poverty in your district. This is giving people training in terms of how to manage resources in a different way. Like there are things that we can do to try and keep it from being politicized in a traditional sense, but we should know that's the path of least resistance. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but in America today, as soon as one side starts to warm up to something, the other side cools on it.
So I guess Republicans lean pro, Democrats are pretty against it. I mean, Elizabeth Warren is, I mean, she's violently against it in what she says publicly. Privately, who knows? But
well, I will say that there are Democrats who are for it. One that jumps to mind is Ro Khanna, who's a very prominent member of Congress. So the truth of it is that most of these figures have not made up their minds. And most of them are still trying to figure out where they stand. And so that is the opportunity.
I think there's also a problem here, because crypto is not just one thing. And I think everyone would like it to be conveniently, well, this is money, but it isn't. It's a whole bunch of different things, and it's technology, and it's overwhelming. How are we going to parse all that out? How are you going to communicate the nuances and the intricacies of this in a way that doesn't overwhelm people? Because it is so much to take on.
Yeah, we have to translate into benefits for communities, ideally a community that someone represents. So like, I don't need you to understand all the breadth of uses of the blockchain. I just need you to understand that people that you care about this. And so that there'll just be an adoption or an implementation that you can get your arms around, and you don't need to worry necessarily about people understanding the whole space. We are hoping to do some education of members and regulators, literally like a blockchain 101 type affair. You can imagine that classroom. It's going to be, like in one of the Capitol buildings. So there are different ways to approach it, but we want to integrate into the system of incentives that many of these people already find themselves within. You know what I mean? Like there's like a genuine understanding in the rest of it. And then there's also, hey, people really care deeply about this, and so you should listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned almost the dirty word, incentives. The trouble I find as someone that communicates about this space a lot is I just don't have the language. The words I need are toxic and have become increasingly toxic as the years have rolled by, to the point where I can't use the word token or currency because it becomes immediately either politicized or it becomes impossible to use it in a non-negative way. So I wonder if you have identified people to carry that message for you in any way.
Well, it's one reason why I do enjoy the Web3 terminology, is that it seems very, uncharged still. Like, it hasn't been charged positively or negatively.
But on that point, what is your definition? You're explaining like I'm five of Web3.
To me, Web3 is all the technologies that rely upon the blockchain, most notably digital currencies and NFTs. But it does go bigger than that. I mean, it's a decentralized internet that enables people to control their own data, which is a dream of mine.
Yeah, the data point is key. I mean, when Gavin Wood coined the phrase, it was in response to Snowden. You know, this horrifying misplaced trust in governments to do the right thing by you gone, and here you are going to government to hope that they will do the right thing. There's a disconnect there, right? The bedrock of Web3 is profoundly anarchic, and you want it to be mainstream and legit now. It's hard.
Well, there is a maturation and an evolution. I think that, again, most people in Web3 probably enjoyed not having the attention of regulators. But we have to know that ship has sailed. You know, people are getting letters from the SEC up the wazoo nowadays, and global events are, as you said, accelerating this direction. But it was heading this way anyway. I mean, you can see that clearly with the infrastructure bill. So if we know what's happening, the question is, how are the rules going to be written? Are they going to balance the management of the risks in the space, which are real, with the positive potential around innovation and value creation and job growth and the rest of it? I think we all sense instinctively that regulators are leaning much more towards the risk management side than the value creation side. And so that's the balance we have to strike. But if someone approaches this saying like, hey, no regs ever, you know, like, respectfully, I and Lobby 3 are kind of accepting of the fact that, look, regs are coming, and we just want them to be as reasonable and balanced as they can be.
Yeah, in its purest form, Web3 rejects governments and central authorities out of hand.
Well, one of the cases we can make, though, Robin, is that for people who are concerned about this, like, this stuff may actually be harder to use for money laundering than, you know, the traditional financial system. You know, like, if you had certain measures in place.
Well, that's the funny thing about Liz Warren crying foul on Bitcoin because it's going to be used by the Russians to get around financial sanctions. I don't think she's ever used Bitcoin. It's really bad for stuff like that. So,
well, I'm confident she hasn't. You know, and that is one of the conundrums that we're facing, which is that, you know, most people, we have to. So that, you know, it's funny. There are two approaches. I just had a conversation with someone about this. My default approach is like, look, I don't need you to use it or really understand it. I just need you to understand that, like, there are very powerful virtues and applications, and you don't want to, like, go too far and throw the baby out with the bathwater. Then the bigger step would be actually become a user, understand this set of technologies through personal value and use. Now that's something where, you know, I kind of laugh because I know some of these people, and the odds of them opening a MetaMask vault and the rest of it, like, you know, seem vanishingly low to me. But one suggestion that was helpful is that the average U.S. senator is 63 years old, but their average chief of staff, who manages most of the things that happen, is in their, like, late 30s, early 40s. So, you know, like, you might have a shot there.
But it was telling in that congressional hearing when Maxine Waters waxed large and Brad Sherman talked about Mongoose Coin. There was one guy, Richie Torres, from the Bronx, I believe it was asking, it felt like, emerging hopeful questions about this and how it could directly impact his community, because the Bronx is notoriously, it's you know, it's low income, it's a poor neighborhood, but he saw it as potentially opening up something for him. And I know it's been a key piece of you as a human, as a politician, moving forward, to really focus the attention on that segment of the population, because they're the ones that need it the most. Are you still there? Do you still feel that that's where we can do the most good?
Yeah, that's why I'm here, and that's why I think we need to make this case as quickly as possible. Is I believe that Web3 can be the most profound anti-poverty tool we have ever seen, and we have to make that case and make it real. And then leaders like Richie Torres will look up and say, wait a minute, like, this is positive for the people that I'm trying to help. Richie is a great leader and thinker. He also does represent one of the poorest areas in the country. And so for him, this can produce enormous value, and we have to help him make that case.
Question for you. Did you get the ENS airdrop? You can plead the fifth on this one, but I'm just curious. Are you an airdrop participant?
I'm not sure I got that particular one.
But you have imbibed from the great teat of the airdrop in the past.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you in trouble, aren't I?
No, I mean, it's like, yeah, like people have a propensity to want to include me in things, which I appreciate a great deal.
You're one of those people. You get airdropped a bunch of junk NFTs, I'm sure. No, the reason I bring it up is because a lot of commentators at the time were saying this is UBI, which it wasn't, but it was free money. Essentially, it was just money out of thin air. You've answered, I'm sure, a gazillion questions about UBI, but there has to be a piece of you thinking that finally there might be a way to make what you had in your head come alive through crypto, and you've got to be excited about that.
I'm super excited about it. That's a lot of the reason I'm here. And one of the earliest experiences I had when I was running for president on UBI is that the cryptocurrency community embraced me in my campaign faster than just about anyone. And the reason for that is that in my experience, 85% of people in the community are for some version of UBI. In large part, I think because they've seen their own lives transformed by these tools, and they've escaped this mindset of scarcity and the zero-sum game, and reached a sense of growth and abundance, and they want that for more people. So I think Web3 can be the path to UBI, especially if you're thinking globally. And I know a lot of people watching this are not in the US right now. So just yesterday, I was with Yoni Asai, who founded Good Dollar, which is a global UBI effort. There's also Proof of Humanity, Circles, Mana. So there are different crypto approaches to getting people basic income. And, they're just scratching the surface of their potential. Yoni believes that we can eradicate poverty in our time. And that if we do so, Web3 is going to be maybe the set of tools that gets us there.
Did you come across WorldCoin at all?
I'm not sure I've seen WorldCoin.
So
is that another effort?
Well, the idea was that everyone on the planet would be due some kind of currency, and you had to take an eye scan. So that this weird silver ball, and it would scan your eyeball. And then off the back of that, they would say, well, you are a unique human, therefore you are entitled to X amount of WorldCoin. Didn't really take off. But the whole message behind that was these things can only work at massive scale. So the network effects that we saw from the likes of Facebook and Google and all these Web2 giants. My question for you is, as a tech proponent, are you getting a lot of pushback from people who just fear the encroachment of tech into everything these days?
Yeah, it's funny, is you've seen the zeitgeist turn from tech can do no wrong to tech can do no right pretty quickly. And as usual, the truth lies somewhere in between. But I think that there is a gap that we have to make up, where unfortunately kind of the burden on proof is on us to say, look, no, these tools are positive. They can help people who've never heard of, the blockchain. Maybe they don't even need to know what the blockchain is for it to help in a way. But the last set of tech giants, I don't think did live up to their promise. And it's one reason why we are where we are, and why there's so much excitement about this next generation. I was at ETH Denver a couple of weeks ago, and the excitement was palpable. It was really invigorating because people genuinely want to build a better future. And that's what we have to kind of expand to people who are skeptical on the outside looking in, which is most people, you have to know. And you also have to know that most people are still struggling with meeting their day-to-day needs. So it's one reason why I appreciate efforts like WorldCoin, even if that particular one didn't take off.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have this dysfunctional relationship with money. It's like, the the bad husband that comes and just beats you over the head, and you accept it, and you love it, and you say that this is the way it must be. And I always couch in, I remember coming to this space and thinking I didn't have enough money, therefore that was my problem. And what I came to realize is that no, the problem was money itself. And once you start to unpack that and rethink what money could be, then your brain explodes. But you wake up and go, holy crap, we really can do anything. But we have such a long journey to remove the cruft of all of this Web2 infrastructure. And I think one of the rightful criticisms of this space is that it has encouraged the same structures of the rich get richer and cartel behavior as anything we saw in Web 2, but now it's kind of unfettered and unregulated, and it's free to do whatever it wants. So the rich have simply got richer in a different way. Do you have a response to that?
Oh yeah, I mean that is the fear, that we're going to just perpetuate the current institutional structures in like a new version with a slightly different cast of characters. I mean, like hopefully we can do fair,
we probably already have. That's the truth. I mean, you can point to certain things and say, well, that's exactly true.
Well, it's one reason why I'm excited to make this case with Lobby 3, Robin, because it can help push us in a better direction. Like let's say right now you think, okay, there are a lot of people on the outside looking in. We may be in danger of building a new version of the same structures. And then what this will hopefully catalyze is for us to say, wait a minute, we can do things differently. We can improve people's lives in like a dramatic new way using these tools. And then if we were to run in that direction and then go to folks in this case in DC and say, look at all these positive use cases, then maybe we wind up with an environment that actually enables the space to flourish and grow over time. I want to share something because I think that that this will be entertaining for people. And this is actually to your question, Duraj. When I was running for president, and I wrote a book called The War on Normal People, and one of the big ideas in the book was we need a new currency that encourages various positive social behaviors, because one of the problems in America is that communities are disintegrating, and you have a need to restore a degree of community structure, purpose, fulfillment, like a need to feel valued. And money, traditional money, can play a role, but there are all these other things that you would need a different type of currency for. So I called it the digital social credit, and I said, like, we should be adopting the digital social credit in the US. Now, my campaign manager made me swear never to speak of the digital social credit after the first month of the campaign, because it was just too much for people. Also, I'm Asian, and so like it made people think of the entire Chinese social credit score, which is like completely dissimilar. And so I had to listen to my campaign manager and be like, okay, I guess I'm still just getting people warmed up to UBI. But I firmly believe that if we had different monetary systems, different currencies, then you could start solving some of the human problems that you were talking about, Robin. It's like right now we have this 1 or 2 dimensional system, and you're like, hey, not enough to go around, scramble for it. Like everyone have this mindset of scarcity that, by the way, we should have evolved past. Like there was a point in not so distant past where we actually flipped to a point where there is plenty for us to be able to live decent lives in the United States, I'm just going to say, and globally. I mean, the numbers in the States are very stark and clear. It's like you could 100% provide for everyone a decent standard of living if you decide to do so. And so but we've never caught up, either in terms of our government institutions or psychically or the rest of it. Like we still are imposing this false scarcity on people. And I do think that having different currencies is one way out, because you need a mindset switch as much as anything else.
Well, you could have those currencies, but you need some way to connect them to the normal everyday economy for people. And I feel like that is the hardest pinch point to solve, that off ramp, on ramp. It shouldn't even be a ramp. It should just be, just normal. There should be no ramp, but somehow that ramp has become this incredibly difficult to police, difficult to proposition piece of the puzzle. Have you guys been thinking about that at all?
Yeah, and again, that's the hope of what we can do with Lobby 3 is we can have different, as you say, not even, well, I mean, I might think of them as on-ramps, honestly, because I feel like some people still might need them. But we can build on-ramps for particular communities and then highlight how beneficial it's been for, let's say, a poor Black neighborhood in Southeast Ohio, or like in a community that right now you don't associate with benefiting from crypto. So if we can achieve that, then we can do a lot of good politically as well. It's a human win. It's a political win. Like, everyone wins.
Except the banks. Do they win?
Oh, a lot of the banks are investing in this space. And one of the things that, I think we have to argue is that, look, you have a traditional fiat financial system and people are using it for the vast majority of their, like the day-to-day interactions and the rest of it. And then you can have this other system that's growing and developing and finding new applications, that this isn't like, again, a zero-sum game, to the earlier point. And I am happy to say that at least some financial institutions are investing heavily. Now, there are some others that are not, and I suspect that those are the ones that I have Brad Sherman's here.
Oh, Brad, he is a delight, to be honest.
Hey, if anyone wants to contribute to Brad's opponent, her name is Erica Rhodes. She's awesome, and a friend. So, feel free.
So listen, I want to do what we can do on a live stream, which is I want to show the Lobby 3 website, give people a sense of what you've built here, because it's actually an NFT project. Lobby 3 is a means for you to contribute to the Lobby 3 DAO and become a member of that DAO with various perks attached. But also, I mean, let's be honest here, you need to raise money because lobbying costs money. So here on the homepage, you can see little faces, little people. These are contributors. And as it fills up, you can see their avatars on the blocks. And these represent people who've assigned this avatar. And this is the National Mall, right? You're filling up here.
Yep, it's the National Mall. So it's kind of a metaverse takes the Capitol type vision. And we are also thinking of doing IRL events in DC. Carly,
how dare you? In real life? Are you mad?
Well, no, don't worry. We're starting with the float. We're starting with the, metaverse mall. But it should be a lot of fun for people to feel like we can make this positive case, and you can do it, in the way you're most comfortable, and have a voice in a community that can hopefully literally change history, change the course of history, because history is being written right now. And you don't necessarily want history to be written in a government agency office in DC. You know what I mean? You want you want history to be written by builders, creators, innovators, and community builders.
It does feel like there's a passing of the guard. There's younger politicians coming through that, and maybe not crypto native, but they are crypto curious. And you have this kind of GameStop style thing happening in politics. It is, like you said, the world is being recreated in front of us, and we get to be spectators, but we can also be participants. So reading the blurb, it's a Web3 community designed to give the people a stronger voice in Washington, DC, so we can build a more prosperous economic future together. And there's various perks. You have membership, you can participate, and then there's 3 tiers of membership, from 0.07 ETH, 1 ETH, to yowzers, 40 ETH. That's a power contributor there. What are some of these perks, and why did you feel you needed to have perks at all for this?
We want to be practical and effective, as well as inclusive. And so the goal is to provide a structure that will enable people to be involved and be able to voice their perspective on what policies they want to see and how they want to go about championing them. But there's also a balance to be struck where some of the lobbying activities are going to be happening behind closed doors. They're going to be like suit-wearing people walking into offices, et cetera, et cetera. And so we thought that this structure would help balance both those things, but also accentuate the power of these tools. It's like, what better way to make the case for Web3 as a force for good than to create a DAO and let the people lead it?
Yeah, what is it? A DAO? Is it a do? Because a DAO is kind of this weird structure that's fully automized, but this is more of a decentralized organization, something like that.
I know. I think you were the person who said like they're DAOs and do's. Again, we want to be effective, and so there will be some guidance. There will be some choices where we say, look, here's what's happening in terms of the regulatory landscape, and here are a few things that we can pursue. There's going to be a combination of an inside game and an outside game, but we do need all hands on deck, because if you do fast forward for a few months, these rules are going to be written, and they're going to be written based on incomplete information. And so at a minimum, we have to make the best case we can, and then we'll at least know that, look, our point of view got taken into account. And right now, I can say with confidence that that probably won't happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I always feel like they know a lot more than they let on, and know a lot less than they should in so many ways. And you kind of just want to say, just come and spend like a month just in my shoes as I ape my way through all these different Telegram groups and Discord channels and listen to conversations and everything else and receive everything that this space gives us. That's never going to happen. And how do we condense that experience into a little pill that they can just take and go, oh, no, now I get it. Or maybe just a spike in the back of their heads. Maybe that's what you should be funding, Andrew, as a tech pioneer, just a spike. Imagine the message that would send to the world.
Well, again, we're going to be very benign and positive about it. We're just going to be like telling awesome stories, highlighting their constituents who are super passionate about this. Hey, if you're outside the US, you can 100% get involved in Lobby 3. We'd love to have you. This will affect everyone, because obviously like the US approach is going to affect everyone else. But if you're in the US, you could wind up talking to your member of Congress about like how this has changed your life.
Yeah, I'm British. I'm allowed to be the bad guy. We've got the roadmap here. It says you've been committed to pushing forward big ideas. I think that's true. UBI, no one saw that coming. And no one saw you going as far as you did. They thought you would just sort of disappear off the sidelines, but somehow still there you were. So the first one is building advocacy infrastructure. What does that look like exactly? Because I have no clue when it comes to this. Genuinely none.
Oh, yeah. It's good fun. So DC runs on relationships. So for any issue, there are some people that may be more influential than others. So the question is, can you call that member's chief of staff? Can you call that member? Maybe an ideal. Can you call someone who can call the member? And if you have that level of access, then that's enormously powerful and valuable. If you don't have it, then you have to build it one way or another. There are different ways to build it. Now, people who have access to particular decision makers sometimes make a market for it. And so the first order of business is to put out a lay of the land and say, okay, here are like the 20 top decision makers. We know 8 of them. We can get to 4 of them. The other 8, we need to build the pipe. So that's a sense of it. The other thing could be that, okay, here are the 8 decision makers that we are already in touch with. Some of them, talking to them doesn't really change anything. But what we have to do is have some folks in their community who grow to care about this and make a case, maybe write an op-ed for the local paper. So that can be part of the infrastructure as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to say there's no problem that money can't solve. And I was wondering if this was the same for these relationships. Well, but I guess it doesn't work that way.
Someone tried to document the return on lobbying as a number, and I think they came up with 1,700% return on investment.
Really? Wowzers. So the number 2 is educating policymakers. We've kind of touched on that a little bit. Is this going to be formalized, or is it going to be, on a pro rata basis? You see an instance where a specific piece of communication needs to happen, or it's a face-to-face. I'm really curious how that education process will play out.
Oh, you're not going to believe this, but we're legitimately going to be assisting on a blockchain 101 seminar for members of Congress that we hope gets dozens of people, co-hosted by the Crypto Caucus. So when educating policymakers, it could legitimately just be straight up educating policymakers, but it also can be one-on-one meetings with their staff, with their policy team, sometimes with a member themselves. Maybe you have an expert in tow, or an artist or creator. It can take different forms.
And then these pilot programs. So you ran a pilot for UBI, for Humanity Forward, and I believe that went pretty well. From what I can
Most
understand.
all of the UBI pilot programs have been very successful. So now we have to do the same thing for Web3. So exciting! Who wants to see a Web3 anti-poverty program rolled out in their community? Ideally with people that would be something of a surprise, where it's like, oh, I don't really think of them as benefiting. So this is the aspect I'm most excited about, honestly, because like I just want to freaking alleviate some poverty, empower people, empower creators, empower individuals to take control of their financial future, and then highlight the results and show members of Congress, look, like this is not what you think it is.
The moment you say it, though, when it becomes an Andrew Yang proposition, it's politicized. And I think you're really keen for it to not be that. That's the sense that I get.
Well, that's a lot of it too, is like, I may or may not be the person, like standing there making the case. Like one of the magical things about politicians is they just love taking credit for things. So, so I can be nowhere near it. And then like a member of Congress could just be like, oh, look at this nonprofit or community organization, like doing this thing. And then they highlight it and tacitly, take some credit. Like it's certainly, like, if it's helpful, I'm there. If it's not helpful, I'm nowhere near the scene.
That sounds about right. How do you get Congress members to join the DAO? You just airdrop them some ETH and say, yeah, there you go.
It's we want the members of Congress to listen to members of the DAO, and to maybe do AMAs and some other things, and to be a friend and partner. But having them be a member of Lobby 3 is probably not the move.
Oh, spies on the inside. Well, I mean, yeah, I get that. But do you have a type of pilot program in mind? How do you think that would roll out?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I just had a call about it, day or two ago. And the goal is for us to do an anti-poverty rollout using a new protocol on the blockchain that's excited about demonstrating its capacity to solve these problems around financial access in a community that right now is getting exploited by check cashers and money lenders and the like. So it's a poor Black community, and the goal is to do that in lots of different communities of different kinds.
It's funny. I used to work for a layer 1 protocol called Harmony, and one of the things that we said, because we were trying to figure out the messaging around Harmony, was we need to be the most human sounding, the most human feeling piece of technology that you can come up against. And we came up with a spin on the UBI idea. It was probably never ever going to actually realistically happen, but this was a Silicon Valley team, a lot of Asian Americans in that team, and we always said it would be amazing to talk to Andrew Yang. And I think you've met the Harmony guys and are doing something with them. Yeah, but it's just so funny how this has come full circle. And like, I wonder what your impression of them was when you met them.
I like them a great deal. I believe that they're going to be part of some of these pilots and implementations. They're trying to build, as you say, the most human currency around. And I frankly, like, I felt like I clicked with them. If there were more people like them, there'd be more good being done. So I want to be helpful to them. And this is all kind of win-win-win for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, so they look at this and they think, hey, yeah, like Lobby 3 helps us. Let's go help some people.
Yeah, and I think that's always been the message with you, is humanity first. We might talk about technology and how it can benefit us, but never lose sight of the humans. And it's hard sometimes not to get overwhelmed by the accelerating pace of technology, AI, and to be over technologized. I mean, I don't even know what the right word is, but I feel like that's part of who you are and how you think, to just remain focused on the human being rather than the tech. Is that fair?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I am a dad, as I think you are too. So, you know, you get reminded of humanity every day. And um, and as my life has gotten um, weirder, honestly, you know, like I felt more responsibility to try and help people, remain human myself, have the right approach to my kids, my wife, who's like a rock and saint who puts up with me. Yeah, I mean, I've met so many people who've had their lives benefited, even transformed from Web3, and I want to see that happen for more people. And I believe Lobby 3 is a way for me to be of service to people, as you say, Robin. You know, if you're not helping another person, then, you know, what are you doing?
It's the thing that critics, and it's been NFTs that have been under the spotlight in the last kind of few months, but they point to human greed as the driving force behind crypto. They point to a kind of crowd of idiots bleating into a void to make themselves feel important. And I, I just feel like sometimes you go, yeah, what are we doing this all for? Like, have we lost sight of all of that? And sometimes recentering ourselves and reminding ourselves that actually there was something good in all of this. It's going to get harder and harder in the coming years, I feel, to remember that bit. And I'm
Well,
wondering if
well, Robin, you talk about this. You know, I'm going to say there's greed and there's altruism. You know, like, and I think there's a lot of altruism uh, among the people in Web3, and we can make that case too.
Yeah, I guess we can. I mean, if I'm a member of the DAO, which I'm not yet, but probably will be.
But you will be.
But I
Excellent,
will
Robin.
be, Mr. Young. What should I be doing? How can I get involved? I know there's a Discord channel and everything else, but what am I there to do for you?
It's not really there to do for me. I mean, it's really there
Well,
to.
I say for Lobby 3. You know, you who cares who you are? You're nobody. Lobby
Yeah,
3.
right. So that's going to be the beauty of it, where you will be there, and then the question is, okay, you know, what do you want to see, and also what do you think would help, and there'd be all of these other interested parties who are, you know, in many cases brilliant, passionate, engaged, where they'll be part of the DAO, and they'll say, hey, you know what I think would be great is if we were to have this beautiful video telling the story about creators, ideally in, you know, one of like 5 key geographies that can help broaden the perception of what crypto is doing. And then other people will say, yeah, I like that idea. Now, in your case, you happen to be a talented filmmaker, so if you felt like it, you could you know, like, you could lead like an enormous hand if you felt like it, or you could just like pipe into someone else who you know is excellent. So the projects will take on a life of their own based upon the people in the DAO and their motivations. And then occasionally there will be something that comes from me or the Lobby 3 team where we're like, hey guys, here's what's going on right now. They have issued these rules for public comment. You know what we could really use is like a huge social media campaign around people commenting around these themes. And then people will be like, okay, like, you know, I can help with that. So it's going to be organic and ground up and people led. And then occasionally it's going to be in concert with whatever the priorities are emanating out of the Capitol.
And presumably this is going to be, there's going to be a treasury for this. It's going to be voted on by members of the DAO to push things forward. Do you foresee this being quite a lot of initiatives coming out of it, or will it be quite a small targeted group of these things that come out over the course of the year?
You know, I'm imagining that it'll probably be more targeted. But I have ambitions, Robin, that this thing ends up morphing into like a community that outlives this particular scramble for reasonable regs in DC. I mean, I would love for it to take on a life of its own and say, okay, what we're about is improving adoption of Web3, understanding of Web3, maybe even in my ideal world, like, fighting poverty in various ways. I mean, it's going to be up to the individuals involved. I do see the window around regs as being approximately 12 to 24 months. But I think both the value and the needs are going to continue. So that would be my personal ambition, is like a giant thriving community of activists for Web3 technologies as a tool to improve the human condition.
What inspired you to set this up in the way that you did with NFTs, with a DAO? Because there are numerous other ways you could have done it, but this feels like it was very intentional.
Yeah, I'm someone who always is trying to give people a chance to lead. Like, you don't want institutions doing everything, and the ethos of Web3 is very much about something being broadly distributed, community led. And so it seemed kind of counterintuitive to me to be like, hey, let's just go to some whales and like collect some checks, and then like go to various offices, and like that seemed kind of lame and insular. And also old school in a way. It's like, wait, if I'm making a case for these new tools, I should use the tools. So it became very natural.
There are some critics. There are those who see you as a twice failed political candidate, who see you as someone looking to reinvigorate your own career through this. And there are people who are inherently just against crypto in general. But I know that you must have encountered all sorts of obstacles and criticisms during the campaigns that you've been on. Like recently, Joe Rogan. I mean, do you regret what you tweeted about Joe Rogan? I mean, you're there in the front line, and you're taking this on the chin for a community, but there might be times where you want to step aside and not be the face of this, I would have thought.
Well, again, my interest in being quote unquote the face of it is like, is relatively low. Like, I just want to solve problems and, make people's lives better. Ideally, I think Lobby 3 ends up being this powerful force that, maybe Andrew Yang is like not like an important figure for it. Same is true of UBI. It's like, I want to get rid of poverty. It's like, I don't care if my name's on the bill. You know what I mean? Like, whoever the heck signs it, it's like, it's all good. So that's what I see my role as. I'm not someone who is after like the traditional trappings of, politics. I just want to solve problems.
The reason I bring it up is that the last person I interviewed like this, Andre Cronje, has just announced he's left DeFi for good. And I think this time he genuinely means it. And it is a hugely talented individual who created some incredible things and made a lot of people very wealthy, but he had enough. And it was human beings that pushed him away. And I guess a lot of the value that was sort of attached to some of the things that he was attached to was only there because he was there, which is a form of centralization. So you have this need for figureheads, for central people that people can rally around, but at the same time, that's inherently at odds with the idea of decentralization. So I don't think I have the answer here, but I wonder if these are some things that you think about as someone who has run for office, who has been that centralizing.
I actually think about this all the time because I've run different organizations, and my highest achievement was that I was not important to those organizations. You know what I mean? Like, I left. So I'll tell you a story. I run a company. It gets acquired. I'm still running the company, and then I decide to leave to start a nonprofit. So there's a moment when I imagine myself to be really important. Like, oh, if I leave, like, what are they going to do? Like, I was going to function or whatever. They got over my departure in approximately 5 minutes. And then the person who was succeeding me, I was like, oh, I'll be there for you. I can answer. It's like, never wanted to talk to me, because the truth is that if you come in and you lead something, you don't want to like call the old leader and be like, what should I do? I mean, like, your entire jam is like finding your own footing and voice and form of leadership, et cetera, et cetera. Now I when they got over my leaving, like I got over it too, in the sense I was like, oh, great. It's like this organization I care deeply about will thrive without me. And that happened again with the nonprofit that I started and ran for a number of years. I think it's happened with UBI, where like you don't even necessarily need Andrew Yang jumping up and down saying UBI, UBI. Like now, like people, I believe, like have taken on understanding of it, and it's like gone well beyond any individual. Wasn't my idea either. I mean, freaking, Thomas Paine, Martin Luther King, like Milton Friedman, like a lot of different people have been for it. So like my goal is always to make myself irrelevant as quickly as I can. You know what I mean? Like I think that's like a worthy ambition, particularly if you're organization building. Like so the single best thing you can do is hire folks around you that will make you irrelevant.
Yeah, and you said that you were replaced by a leader, but I think the idea is that there is no leader. I mean, there's always some kind of form of.
Well, that was in a company context. I mean, you're going to have a company in that place. In the context of a DAO or whatnot, like even if it's like quote unquote leaderless, like I think there will be a de facto leader just based on who comes in with the most energy and like is committing the most time and the rest of it. You know what I mean?
No, I do. I absolutely do. I think it's one of the reasons why I think people have enjoyed the videos I make, because I've become with a certain kind of je ne sais quoi. Maybe it's the English accent.
You do have that, man. It's true. You do have that.
It's the lighting. It's just expensive lighting. That's all it is. And it's not even my real voice. I have a question for you now. You said meaningful regulation. In your head, there has to be a picture of what a great result looks like. And I wonder if you can paint that for us as our final piece here.
Again, there are two sides to this coin. I mean, one is the real risks that are associated with it. I mean, like there have been issues and problems. And I'm going to suggest that it's curbing adoption. I mean, like the press has sensationalized some of like the negative scenarios. But if you can actually put guardrails around it where you don't have rug pulls and like scams and hacks and, and concerns that people are like funneling illicit funds, in different ways. And then there's this positive side, which is all of the incredible innovation, everything from that patient data security company I was talking about, like all the way to artists and creators getting the ability to support themselves with thriving communities. My goal is to make it so that the rules are intelligent, understand the space, and properly prioritize this second side of the equation. Because right now, if you're a regulator, unfortunately, they're very, very focused on the first. They're like, what's the risk? Get rid of the risk. And then if I've curbed innovation or pushed jobs overseas or whatnot, like, not my problem. Like, it's like, that doesn't really enter it. So the goal is for it to be done in tandem with people who are investing their careers in Web3 and say, look, like, there's an actual dialogue there. It could even be like a long-term partnership. In my ideal world, you don't have this stuff operating out of the SEC, which, by the way, is going to take its relatively antiquated framework and just try and apply it to other things. You'd want a new agency around digital assets and, and new currencies. So that's the vision that I'm hoping to achieve. And with your help and the help of everyone who is a part of Lobby 3, we're going to make that case as powerfully as we can. There's so much relying on it. Really, history is being written right now. And we want it to include these tools that I think can help end poverty in our time.
I think certainly for me, I never thought that lobbying was even a thing that was accessible to the likes of us. Like I'm English, I'm based in the Netherlands. What possible connection do I have to lobbying in the most powerful regulatory environment in this space? But somehow here we are, and I do, and that's kind of opened my eyes a little bit and give me some hope, but also some deep trepidation about the size of the task in front of us.
That's a pretty accurate picture of the world. But one thing I will say to you and everyone listening to this is like, look, DC regulation seems like a black box. As soon as you dig into it, it becomes like, oh, I get it. It's human beings in offices with political incentives and people they trust and different things and like constituencies and like, hey, like the things you imagine might have an impact, like an incredible press narrative, or this like all it is a lot of blocking and tackling, but it is very achievable. I hope that people feel like, you know, I've demystified it at least a little bit, because there are people much dumber than you and other people, like, you know, navigating this process very, very effectively on behalf of of firms, getting their, you know, 1,700% return on investment and whatnot. And if you put numbers around this effort, like if you think about the value gap between having like well-reasoned, balanced regulatory approaches and then like really poorly conceived ones, I mean, what is that value gap in terms of, you know, it's like if you were to put a number on it, it would be almost unimaginably large.
Well, I think basically what we need to do is we need to set up a yield farm for lobbying. 1,700%, people buy that. It's not too scary, but you know, just derug it, and there you go, and you've got it. Well, listen, Andrew, our time is up, sadly, but it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. If you would like to get involved in Lobby 3, the sale is still on, right? You're selling tokens.
Yeah, we're minting through Thursday, lobby3.io. Please do join us in making this case and provide a voice for Web3 from people around the world to Washington, D.C.
And I think from a skeptical point of view, I know that people would look at this and think, oh, this is just a fundraising endeavor. I think from having spoken to you twice now, like your heart's in the right place. You mean this. And there's an opportunity for us to actually reach people that matter in a way that we've never been able to do. And for me, that's the most exciting and powerful part of all of this. So Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time, and thanks for joining us. You've been watching The Defiant. I will see you next time.
Thanks.